with Michael Williams.
As a historic presidential election draws near, the 9th Democratic debate taking place tonight. It's going to be quite a year. November will be here in a snap. Which candidate is surging for the moment? Which are struggling? What might it take to ultimately win the Democratic nomination and face off against President Donald Trump? Good evening and welcome to our special edition of To the Point. Just a few hours away from the 9th Democratic debate, the voters will be taking notes this evening on where the candidates stand on the issues that matter most. Healthcare, economy, immigration, gun control, education, you name it. As Election Day approaches, what does it take to win those votes? Well, we welcome our guests, former Republican Congressman Tom Rooney and Juan Peñalosa, Executive Director of the Florida Democratic Party. We thank you for being here. We'll begin with the Democratic candidates appearing in tonight's debate. Former Vice President Joe Biden, former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg, former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Two candidates in the race, but they won't be on the stage. They didn't qualify. California billionaire Tom Steyer and Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard. Looks like it may well be a Bloomberg bash tonight in Nevada. He'll appear on the stage for the first time. People in Florida well familiar with him. Congressman, we'll begin with you. How do you expect the outlines of the debate to go, especially as the focus will be on Michael Bloomberg?
Well, certainly, as you alluded to, I think that the mayor is going to get an onslaught of heat from his rival candidates, especially since they've been doing this for a while. But I think that, you know, the mayor has probably been preparing well, and, you know, I think that he is going to be ready, and, you know, it's going to be very interesting. But again, I think a lot of fireworks.
Mr. Peñalosa, what do you expect to be the jabs that he'll take early and often?
Sure. I think Mayor Bloomberg is going to have an opportunity to present his vision to America on the debate stage for the very first time tonight. I think you're going to see a lot of contrast and a lot of questions of some of his past policies. I'm just as curious as everyone else who's going to be watching to see how he's going to lay those out. I think the one thing you are going to see on this debate stage is every single nominee have kind of a core Democratic value and common approach to equal access to affordable health care for every single American, an economy that works for all of us, and addressing those issues that talked about gun safety, climate change, et cetera.
Let's table health care for a moment. It's
Sure.
a key topic, and I do want to talk extensively about it. But he's being bashed by progressives, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and indeed by Republicans, including President Trump. Your billions, you're trying to buy the election. Does his billions and the fact he's self-funded disqualify him, in your opinion, as somebody who helps lead up one of the biggest efforts in one of the biggest states that Democrats are trying to win?
I think every single candidate has to make the case for why they are the best nominee to take on Donald Trump and why they present the best path forward for every single American who's voting in this election. The fact that he is a self-made billionaire and has access to funds to get his message across certainly doesn't hurt. But at the end of the day, it's the message and who Democratic voters believe can beat Donald Trump that's gonna carry the day.
You saw Joe Biden there, who's been struggling in the polls. He's dipped in the polls. Clearly, Michael Bloomberg would like to fill the centrist lane that he feels and others feel that Joe Biden, at least at the moment, has not adequately risen to the challenge to meet. Healthcare a key issue, and in many ways it's representative of the debate. In the most progressive wing of the party, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Medicare for all, no choice in a few years. You'd lose your private health care insurance, and yet you have centrists, including the mayor, including Amy Klobuchar, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, who say you can't tell Americans you can't have your private health insurance. And that's really riven the party. Your take on that and how it's helping to affect the shape and profile of this race?
Sure. I think what that discussion on healthcare is doing is drawing a stark contrast between what the Democrats are presenting and what the Republicans and Donald Trump has presented. So on the left, and on the Democratic side, you have a really kind of robust debate of how do we provide affordable access to every single American, affordable access to healthcare. On the Republican side of the debate, you have Donald Trump, who's broken promises to seniors, who wants to presented a budget that cuts Medicare and Social Security, and that is now taking on pre-existing condition protections.
Well, although he recently argued he would not do that. Democrats say you say it, but do you mean it? Congressman, Republicans argue we have a ready-made issue, and in fact they say Democrats, like Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, and Michael Bloomberg, are making the case for us that while we may have real problems, you shouldn't take away our private health care as an option to fix health care in America. Your take on how Republicans are sizing that one up and where we're going in terms of the political landscape?
Well, I certainly think that, my time in Congress was enveloped with Obamacare and the passage of, and then our attempts to repeal over those years. And certainly it isn't perfect. And I think that the message that some of the more moderate Democrats are putting out there, that Medicare for all is going to be too heavy of a lift. So let's to say to the people that, you might be able to keep your doctor as you have it now, but even Pete Buttigieg, as I heard him saying the other night, that's how it's going to be at the beginning, but eventually our goal is going to be Medicare for all. So at some point you're going to have to explain to the American people how you're going to pay for something like that and not keep ballooning our debt. But this issue's been going on for years and years and years, and we still don't have a solid answer for it. So if a politician can figure out how to make that message stick, tonight would be a good chance for them to do that, but it hasn't so far. So that's one of those holy grail issues that I just don't think a Democrat's going to be able to easily explain to the American people that they can buy into that. Obama had the best chance to do it, and it's still not working.
You're shaking your head a bit, Mr. Peñalosa.
All due respect, Mr. Rooney.
All due respect.
What the Democrats are presenting are multiple paths to affordable access to health care. What the Republicans have presented is, and those in Congress before you, those in Congress today, are presenting a way to dismantle the Affordable Care Act without replacing it with anything.
But the counter argument is that Democrats, including the leader in national polls, Bernie Sanders right now, is looking to dismantle private health care for 150 million Americans. And how are you going to sell that argument when Democrats are the soundbite Republicans will use all fall on health care, which is such a huge pocketbook issue for so many of the people watching this broadcast? Why shouldn't they be allowed to have choice?
I'm not advocating for one or the
other.
No,
I know you're not. I'm talking about the party.
What I'm arguing is that Republicans want to remove affordable access to health care. They want to repeal Obamacare, replace it with nothing. They want to remove pre-existing condition protections. And the budget that the president just released this month cuts Medicare and Social Security against the promises that he made earlier. Democrats are presenting multiple paths forward, and I think that's an important point.
We'll see that debate. It's one that has the party debating itself right now. Talk about that and the weakness that Democrats perceive on this issue. Final thought before we move on to other Florida-centric issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in politics anymore, so I don't have any talking points other than to say that we tried to have replacements ready to go. Most of us were for protecting pre-existing conditions. I know it's a good talking point to say that the Republicans never had a replacement. We had multiple. We always understood that pre-existing conditions was a bridge that we couldn't cross to eliminate that. And so
your Congress did. This one doesn't.
Well, your Congress also had a complete majority for the first 2 years I was there and gave us an imperfect product. So the fact that we're still talking about this years later means it doesn't work.
Let me ask you this. Let's move on to another topic. As you look at the landscape of Florida, as you look at the race on the fall, what are the issues motivating voters you think in Florida? We'll begin with you and then you, Mr. Peñalosa.
Well, I think especially that what you're going to...
Beyond health care, obviously.
Right. I think immigration is going to always be a big issue, and I think it's going to be very big this year, especially in Florida. I think that you're going to see Mike Bloomberg talk about this and the rest of the candidates, especially in a state like Nevada, as well. So I think immigration is going to be a huge issue, and what they do finally with the Dreamers, another issue that has just been going on and on and on. And then, of course, the issues that we have at the border, I think you're going to hear a lot about tonight.
What are you hearing from people out in Florida?
I mean, I think in Florida, the person who's going to win Florida, the candidate that's going to win Florida, is going to be the one that presents solutions to climate change, to the gun violence impacting our state, and an economy that works for every single one of us. The president's key achievement in economy, while it works for those who have million-dollar stock portfolios, is to give companies like Amazon and Halliburton, who have billions of dollars in profit, a $0 tax.
No question that there's been a lot more going on corporate tax breaks that benefited the wealthy, but many argue Democrats are making light of the fact, too much so, that unemployment's down to 50-year lows, that all boats are being lifted. Are those who are more wealthy perhaps being lifted even more than those who are middle class, but that all boats, that wage growth, that unemployment among African Americans, Hispanics is down, and that Democrats are whistling past the graveyard, as I say a bit, if they think they can beat Donald Trump on the economy itself in November? How do you out-Trump Trump when the economy is doing so well right now, generally speaking?
Yeah, sure. I think that the folks that are going to vote in this state are going to determine whether or not the economy is working for them. And yes, unemployment is down, but people are working 2 and 3 jobs to put a roof over their head. They're still having to choose between groceries and medicine, and those are things that shouldn't exist in a country with the wealth and excess that we have in this country.
Talk about the role of the burgeoning Hispanic vote in Florida.
Sure. Yeah, a community I'm a member of and I understand very well. And Democrats have fallen short in past election cycles in kind of understanding and reaching out to the Hispanic community. What we're doing this time around is we're building a ground game every single day and reaching out to voters every single day. A third of our 97-person campaign team, which is larger than the president's and the Republican Party of Florida, speaks Spanish right now.
And the president, the Republicans also saying that we're not taking any vote, including the Hispanic vote or African-American vote, for granted. What do you hear out and about as they try to rev up their efforts?
Well, I think I agree with one of the things Juan said about climate change, and especially in Florida, if you look at one of the things that our Governor DeSantis, ran on and won and has done a lot for the state with regard to the environment, the Everglades, and things like that. That is one of those sort of secret below the radar issues for Florida that I think Republicans and Democrats both really care about. So I think that that's going to be another one you'll hear tonight.
Briefly from both of you, Congressman, which candidate worries Republicans the most to go against President Donald Trump in November?
I think Mike Bloomberg is going to be, Mike Bloomberg, everybody thinks has just come on the scenes. He's thrown billions of dollars at this campaign. But don't forget, for the last several years, he's been very involved in gun control. He's been very involved in a lot of issues, giving money to politicians to prep himself, I think, for this moment.
Counter question to you. There's many, including the Democratic establishment, who say there is no way somebody as progressive as Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist, can win in November against President Trump.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is an epic debate tonight on what is the path forward, and the person that can connect with Florida voters, that can present plans for healthcare, climate change, gun safety that resonate with us is going to win. I don't know who I'm voting for yet, so I am not going to be able to fund it and choose a favorite.
Mr. Peñalosa, former Congressman Rooney, we look forward to having you back as we head on into Super Tuesday in a few weeks, then the Florida primary March 17th. Thank you for perspective tonight. I know you'll be keen in on the debate, as we shall, and we'll be back with more in just a moment with our roundtable. Please stay with us.